Douma, who joins us from the Lebanese capital. Chloe, first of all, this first 5-hour window of hope has been rather shaky. Talk us through what was actually achieved in this first humanitarian pause.
Well, not much was achieved today. In fact, the Russian truce was supposed to begin today at 9 a.m. and last for 5 hours until 2 p.m. this afternoon. The idea was to set up humanitarian corridors that would allow for aid to get into eastern Ghouta, and that would also have allowed civilians to be evacuated. But in fact, what happened once again was a display of violence. The Syrian state media reported that everything was in place for the evacuations to begin, with medical equipment available and even buses that were supposed to take the civilians towards safe shelters. But the operations were jeopardized as some rebel groups, including al-Nusra, started firing several rockets at the humanitarian corridors. Now, on the other hand, the people that we are in contact with in eastern Ghouta, people we talk to over the phone almost every day since the attacks have begun, well, they say that the regime continued shelling the rebel enclave, that nobody was able to get out, and that, in fact, the ceasefire was never respected since it was voted on Saturday night.
Now, Chloe, is there any sense of hope, any sense of confidence that this Russian plan could now work in the days ahead?
Well, this ceasefire is very difficult to implement for a number of reasons. Firstly, because the UN resolution excludes 3 of the fighting groups, al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, as well as their affiliates. So technically, this gives the possibility for the Syrian regime to continue shelling eastern Ghouta as long as it claims that it is targeting those terrorist groups. Now, on the ground, there are several fighting groups, but today, some of them wrote a letter to the United Nations to say that they were ready to kick out the terrorist groups, including al-Qaeda and al-Nusra, if that meant that the ceasefire would finally be respected. So maybe some reason to hope there. And with regards to the humanitarian aid, we are in touch with the 3 organizations that are responsible for setting up the aid convoys for Ghouta. They say that they are ready to go anytime. They are monitoring the situation hour by hour, but they are waiting for there to be enough of a pause in the fighting to actually set off and go deliver that urgently needed aid.
Chloe Douma, our correspondent there in Beirut, thank you very much for that update.